I wish the rest of the car deserved these parts. What's up, folks? Welcome to 802 Garage, your home to this endless project car, my GC6 Impreza with a JDM GC8 turbo engine in it. And though it will be an endless project, at least until maybe I scrap the shell, more on that later, it is getting to the end of a stage. It may actually move very soon. Let me show you real quick. This is all I actually have left to put on the car before it can pretty much drive. Well, that's not true. I actually have brakes to put on it as well, but that's pretty easy. Got to do the e-brake, got to do the rear brakes as well. I actually got all that stuff from R Concepts. It's in one of them boxes, and it's got some nice drilled and slotted rotors to match the ones that are on the front. Let me see if you can see those. Maybe just barely. Yeah, there they are. There they are. So it'll be super, super race car, but let me show you the real goods underneath. Bam! It's looking really good with the diff up there. Ooh, ooh, I wish the rest of the car deserved these parts. You know what I'm saying? And I think that silver diff looks really good with the black. Yeah. And you can see here, definitely missing brakes. You know, there's the calipers. I did not paint the calipers, so maybe sometime, who knows. But it's going to be pretty easy to put those rear brakes together because disassembly is usually much more difficult than assembly. I also think I may have a bad strut mount up in there. I'm not really sure yet, and these struts may be blown in general, but I actually do have a set of cheap coilovers I can put on this car. If that's the case, if I feel like it, should be easy to get them out now that I've had everything apart. So I want to make tonight's video pretty quick because basic point, I am exhausted. I wanted to be a little bit further on the car. I was hoping to maybe have all of the suspension bits and hopefully even the brakes on it, but I'm not quite there yet. Definitely wasn't going to have it done for today because I forgot that the exhaust is going to be a pain in my bum because I have to re-weld an exhaust hanger on the car and I might have to relocate a hanger that's already on the exhaust. It's that the exhaust was bodged by previous owners, just like a lot of stuff on this car. But another reason I'm a little bit further behind is we basically had a heat wave. It was like in the 40s and even up into the low 50s yesterday, which means that the snow was melting like crazy and it was raining. It rained for like, I don't know, 18 hours straight, which is awesome because it got rid of tons of snow. But I also went out and bought a new snow shovel since our last one died because, let me show you, Vermont is so extreme that I managed to kill a Garant shovel. And I gotta tell you, this was a really, really good shovel. Had a few years of solid duty. Now we've got this blue one that's made in Maine instead. It's working pretty well. At any rate, kind of killed my body doing a lot of shoveling. Basically what I was doing is clearing around any of the cars that I want to be able to get to. That way when the rain came, it would basically clear the snow all the way down to the ground and just make my life a lot easier whenever I want to get to anything, including the V10 Impreza and the 2002 WRX. But the other reason my body is destroyed, and I'll show you some clips here while I'm talking, is that, well, it's been a lot of work just to get everything underneath this car. I did go to the hardware store and buy some new washers since I wasn't happy with the ones that I had, and I did manage to find some stainless metric fender washers that were almost exactly the same size as the OEM kit. The only difference is the OEM washers apparently actually have like rubber bumpers on them and they call them stoppers. They're not just simply washers, but I didn't feel like driving all the way to the dealer to try to get some of those. Here's the kicker though. Those stainless metric washers, because that's what they are, were $3 a piece. So I paid $12 for 4 washers, which is ridiculous, but they would have been over $4 a piece for the correct stuff from the dealer, and it doesn't make a big difference, so it's whatever. If anything, I think these are actually going to lock down the subframe a little bit more, which is okay with me. So after putting the subframe back up underneath the car, I also had to put up the diff, and the easier way to do this definitely would have been to, you know, put it on a jack and jack it up and then try to slide it onto the bolts and then put on the lower plate and everything. But I really just wanted to try to bench press it up in there. It was really just a personal challenge to be like, is this a good way to do this and how hard is it? And it honestly wasn't that hard. I think if I did it again, I could do it a lot faster. But I will say it made my chest and my arms a little bit sore, and even my abs, because, you know, I had to do some weird flexing there. So really my entire body is pretty sore today. You combine that with the shoveling, you know, bench pressing a cast iron diff and shoveling heavy, wet snow with a pretty high capacity shovel. Yeah, it's the good life. You know what I'm saying? I got to get my workout somehow. I don't want to gain any weight. But so I got that up in there. And then to be honest with you, I have just been working so slow when it comes to putting all this stuff back together, which seems ridiculous since the disassembly took so long. You'd think I'd be really anxious to get it done. But one thing is I grease like everything. And I mean, like I thoroughly grease, bolt shafts, and I put anti-seize on everything. And that's basically because grease repels water. It's that simple. If you have some nice thick grease in there, it keeps away water. Just like WD-40 is water displacement, WD. Grease is really good at that, and that means it keeps away rust, because without moisture on the metal, things won't rust. So the bottom line is, the next time I go to take this thing apart, it's gonna be easy. That's the goal here. So hopefully I'll show you some little clips of just greasing the crap out of stuff, and you'll understand a little bit better what I'm talking about. And the other reason I've been slow is I just kind of overthink the entire process, because I know that there's a correct procedure, for example, for how they do this on the assembly line. How would they put it together at the factory that makes the most sense? And when it comes to just basic solid mounted stuff, it doesn't really bother me that much. But since I'm actually assembling the entire rear suspension, the order things go on kind of does matter. You don't want something that takes torque to be kinked sideways a little bit. You don't want something with suspension to be bound up prematurely. You want everything to be under the correct tension and centered properly when the car is on the ground. So obviously I haven't actually fully torqued pretty much anything down yet, because most of it you need to torque down with the wheels on the car and with the car sitting with weight on all the rear suspension. But for example, I did mostly torque up the bolts that hold the diff into that T-frame member that carries the diff. But there are also 4 bolts that go into the sides of that differential carrier that I wasn't really sure if they should be torqued first or second, but obviously it makes sense that they have to be torqued second, because, you're pulling that plate up and it has to sandwich the diff to the carrier. But also at the same time, if you don't have it all aligned properly before you do that, then you might not be able to get those bolts in the side. So I kind of started the bottom, got it all the way up, backed it off a little bit, put in the side bolts, didn't tighten them down all the way, finished the lower bolts, and then finished the side bolts, and that seemed to get it all aligned really properly. So yes, I know that that's kind of overkill and that I shouldn't overthink things that much. But that's the way it is. And there's just been lots of other little things too. Like I'm using the pair of axles I got with all this free stuff with the rack of PBR rather than the axles that came on the car, simply because they're in better shape and they don't have missing boot clamps or anything like that. But then I still took the time to clean up the shafts and the splines and thoroughly greased them, and one of them had a little bit of pitting, so I sanded that down. I don't have any clips of that, but then I did throw in the axles, of course, so those are pretty much ready to be torqued down. Another thing that took some time was replacing the seals on the knuckles, which you should be seeing here. It was just a semi-time consuming process because I wanted to make sure that I put the seals all in the correct direction, because I've definitely experienced it many times before where the parts that I took off the car did not have the seals inserted in the right direction. So I just double checked all of that, lubed everything, cleaned it thoroughly, and just, hopefully made sure that the bearings will live. I added a little bit of grease to the bearings and took out what I could because I know that it was a little bit dirty. And honestly, one of these bearings is probably not long for this world because it already has a little bit of play, but I'm hoping that it's mostly just loose and that once I put in the axle, it'll take up that slop. If not, it'll be really, really easy to change these bearings because everything will have just gone together, so it should come apart so easy. Doing one of these bearings for me, if I can actually get out that lateral link bolt, which I obviously will be able to, is like maybe a 2-hour job. So I'm not concerned at all, but I'm obviously not going to change the bearing when it's off the car when I don't have the proper tools to do that. If I had a press, maybe I would, but right now it would just be a big pain in the bum and extend the process. So anyways, that's where I'm at, folks. Really, it just takes me a long time because I'm just very, very meticulous with reassembly. And that's one of the nice things about the $500 turbo car or the V10 Impreza, for example, is the point of those builds was to not give so many Fs, so many frigs, so many funks. Don't demonetize me, YouTube robots. And that was really fun, working on the turbo car. It's not like I didn't clean off bolts or make sure that things went together right, but I didn't care nearly as much because it was the sort of thing where it's like, this might blow up. And even though this car is definitely probably on a pathway to scrap, The parts are not. You know, the parts have value to me. And also, I want to drive it. And I don't know, it's just sort of a principle thing. Like, I wouldn't feel satisfied about it. Maybe it's because this is essentially my dream car. This shell certainly isn't, but this car, a GC chassis with a turbo engine in it, and you know, basically stock but nice appearance, like I love that. You know what I'm saying? So maybe it just makes me want to do everything right, the best that I can. You know, and yes, I skipped welding the frame rail, for example, but we've talked about that already. And then with the V10, for example, that's supposed to be a totally no Fs given build, which it is impossible for me to give no Fs, but I'm going to be hacking things up. You're going to see when you see progress on that. And I know a lot of you have been waiting. If you made it to the end of the video, here's your update on it. You won't see that build until I have a lot more done on it. And that's the basic point. It's not at all dead. No plans have changed. Progress has been made that you have not seen. And that's all I'm really going to say about it, because that's still supposed to be big for the channel. And when it happens, it happens. And when you see the next video, I hope you'll all be very impressed. It's just going to be a while. I have absolutely no timeline for you, and I'm sorry for that. But only as sorry as I can be, because I got to do what I got to do. But the basic point is I'm going to be hacking and slashing, getting rid of anything I need to. I'm not going to worry about cleaning up edges of everything. I'm not going to worry about fixing rust. I am just going to build motor mounts whatever way I see fit. You know, you're going to see everything that I'm doing to that build is just get it done. That does not mean that no engineering thought is going to go into it, that I don't care if it works. It just means I don't care about it being perfect or pristine or the bolts clean or anything. Stuff can get sent home with an impact on that one, and that's fine. I'm not going to torque all the suspension bolts because nothing is going to be to spec anymore anyway. You know, so that's part of what the genesis of that build was literally just because I wanted a no Fs given build. And that was a perfect candidate. The most ridiculous engine in the most impractical chassis. I don't want to have to care about every little thing. At any rate, it makes me feel good about the work that I'm doing. It's getting done well. Hopefully people will learn some things when they watch the video, or just be intrigued by how I do things, because I know a lot of people living in non-rust states don't do a lot of the stuff that I'm doing. But when you live here, if you do it, it makes your life, or whoever owns the car next, their life, so much easier down the road. And that's just the way it is from my experience. When I have to do a job the second time, you know, if I change an axle and then I have to change it again in 50,000 miles for whatever reason, it's so much easier the second time. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with ball joints, wheel bearings, whatever it is. And so that's how I do things. All right, this was way longer than expected. That's life, but I really appreciate y'all watching 802 Garage. And in the next video, I do, at the least, provided nothing major comes up or I don't have to do a ton more shoveling. Man, my arms are so sore. Even just holding up this little GoPro, I'm like, oh. But hopefully next video, I'm expecting to basically have all the suspension done, have the brakes on, and at least be working on the exhaust. Ideally, I'd love to have it finished. I know I could do that by 2 days from now if I really bust my bum, but I have been spending a lot of time in the garage. Another thing that takes time is cleaning, by the way. I clean up a lot while I'm working, because otherwise this place would just be an absolute minefield. And I think one of my goals for the very near future is to clean off my workbenches, because I know some people critique me for working on the floor so much, and I guess I'm just honestly used to it. And like, this stuff is not a big deal to clean. The problem is just, it doesn't have anywhere to go. You know what I mean? I've already spent so much time cleaning just to have space, but I need to find a way to create more so I can work while standing up instead of killing my back and my knees and having to, you know, Slav squat all the time and just kind of do my work like this. You know what I'm saying? So with that, peace out, gang gang. Thanks for watching 802 Garage. Don't hate me. Don't unsubscribe. Please like, comment, share. Appreciate y'all. Bye-bye. Thanks for the SR20. Have a wonderful time.